Hello and welcome to Iceland. This video covers the most recent news from the Hofsjökull volcano that features a newly formed ice cauldron or some sort of development that might be a direct continuation of the story I've been sharing since 2023. And due to the unusual nature of these events, this video will include maps, time-lapses, satellite images, high-altitude aerial footage, and of course my own drone footage from several tours around there. So this will be one of the videos that I can refer to during future events, so I don't have to do the same story over and over again every time. And this story started with unexpected seismic activity in 2023 that has now developed into a new ice cauldron detected by scientists in November 2025 during their annual tour to measure the thickness of the glacier. And the cauldron is where the trail up to the glacier used to be. And it appears to be 1 kilometer long with numerous cracks, so such occurrences are always a remarkable sight. And sadly, the scientists didn't share it, and the Met Office didn't even include a mobile phone photo from this expedition. And all we got was a satellite photo, cropped enough to make it hard to see where the cauldron is exactly. And if we look at that location from a plane, it's just about here, and we can actually see the outlines of the caldera here. So the cauldron sits very close to the rim. And when I checked the satellite images back in time, it was possible to see little parts of the story developing, or when the ice subsided. However, it's often very cloudy up there, so many of the satellite images available are of very poor quality. So let's look at it now from the Hveravellir geothermal area that we have now in the foreground, and this is what we get. This is how hot this region really is, and up to a certain point, changes in high temperature systems are usually nothing to worry about, unless of course they are a part of a bigger plan. And out of curiosity, I made the time lapses to see how the seismic activity has been trending. And what we see here are the last 15 years, with extremely low seismic activity until late 2023, when this still ongoing trend started. And what sticks out are the patterns, possibly fractures converging near the caldera, and since I'm not the expert, I went browsing for comments from Icelandic scientists and came across a statement saying that the region's earthquakes may reflect tectonic stress adjustments or deep crustal processes, rather than magma on the move, which is easier to detect, meaning that the Hofsjökull earthquakes do not currently show these clear precursors to a volcanic eruption. This sounded very sensible, actually. And like we see on this time-lapse, the wide view, there is just so much else going on in the region. Like there was this eruption in Bárðarbunga in 2014, and that volcano is still reloading with expanding magma chamber not far away from Hofsjökull. And like I mentioned in my 2026 overview video recently, these are turbulent times in the geology of Iceland. And even though Hofsjökull doesn't look important for the big picture right now, I have to use the chance to look closer at this ancient giant to make this video into a neat little information package to refer to when and if the next episode starts. And lack of information is the first thing that comes to mind, mainly due to no recorded historical eruptions since the settlement. And that is what made these earthquakes quite big news, actually. Not least because what we have is the third largest ice cap in Iceland, sitting above this caldera. And that huge chunk of ice powers a large part of our electricity grid, so no glacier in Iceland is as valuable as Hofsjökull. This big chunk of ice is lots of money that powers thousands of jobs. And since it sits on the Central Highlands, the rivers that originate under the glacier, they flow both ways to the north coast and the south coast. And some of the meltwater accumulates northeast of the glacier in a reservoir that forms the third largest lake in Iceland. And I shot this while I was driving over one of the dams last summer. The power plant is underground, and after the tour through the turbines, the water ends up in the old path in a valley on the edge of the highlands. And the dams and the infrastructure around here was not designed to withstand a major flood from the glacier. However, this may be the least of our worries, since further south, that is where the river Þjórsá originates, the longest river in Iceland, and currently there are 6 major hydroelectric power stations along that river alone that contribute a substantial portion of Iceland's hydropower output, making us extremely dependent on this glacier. And a volcanic eruption under there could be catastrophic in so many ways. So what elements do we have there under the ice? And the main element is, of course, one of the deepest caldera in Iceland, 30 square kilometers. The ice above it is up to 700 meters thick, and this is often called the largest caldera in Iceland, or even the largest volcano in Iceland, which is an overstatement unless we use the terms volume alone, since the volcano and associated formations under and around the glacier left this huge footprint in the center of our island. And the Hofsjökull sits actually close by or almost above the hotspot, the Mental and even to the untrained eye, this looks like a key player in the geological history of Iceland, although we do have larger calderas elsewhere. Only 6 eruptions can be confirmed after the deglaciation, and the glacier-covered volcanoes are, of course, harder to study than others, so this region is not like an open book for scientists, which explains the lack of general information, in addition to facts like we only have a small science community with lots of volcanoes, so they have to prioritize, of course. Hofsjökull has been dormant for so long that it might have affected research funding and such, although it's not for me to say, since this is just so new to see this ancient giant rumble. And what scientists know for sure is that this volcanic system consists of actually 2 central volcanoes and a fissure one. The total length remains somewhat uncertain, although some sources say it's about 90 kilometers long and up to 35 kilometers wide. And my next drone clip was shot during my last Highland tour last summer. And I'm panning away from the glacier along the fracture swarm to the south, where we see Kerlingafjöll Mountains, the second central volcano in the system, built from mostly ancient subglacial eruptions. This part of the system is considered dormant, and hardly any earthquakes are detected there, although this is a huge hotspot of geothermal energy. This used to be the only usable highland ski resort over the summer, but as the climate got warmer, it left the ski resort with only one option, or to ask the customers to bring their own snow. So the old business model there, it somehow went downhill faster than the skiers. And today, this is a high-end tourist resort in one of the most interesting hiking locations in Iceland. And this is a very colorful region, and I have not flown over it since I got a drone. And honestly, I don't want to until I get the perfect conditions, since filming mountains with rhyolite is no fun unless the light is perfect. And we used to have way more vegetation in this area until the sheep ate it all. So this is not the picture-perfect postcard version of Iceland, unless you hike and use the trails closer to Langjökull Glacier. And this is actually Iceland's most popular highland crossing, the home of Road 35, which is by far the easiest highland road, open for all vehicles over the summer. And I actually filmed the complete road during my last trip from the car. And it's one of the videos that needs some more processing, and it will be online soon since I started that work while prepping this video. And I just have to say that despite this harsh nature and strange, I love to film around here, although it's often insanely difficult due to wind. This is, however, where we can often see different weather systems meet. And when we mix them with cold air from the glacier, we often get all sorts of cloud fantasies, making this a good region for time-lapsing. And not all such attempts work out as planned, of course. I was, however, surprised how well my Mavic 4 performed last summer, during a day when even the takeoff was tricky due to wind. And the drone was steady enough to come back with good enough files to be stabilized in post without too much cropping. And I didn't even try to film with my Nikon that day. When I got back, I bought sandbags to have in the car to put on a tripod during days like we get on the highlands. And I'm planning to go back to the glacier next summer, of course, although I don't expect any major changes there, since this is not looking like magma on the move. Tectonic adjustments could, however, of course, put something into motion, so never say never, and this location will continue to be on my filming list for a long time. I would love to do a tour up on the glacier, film the new cauldron and such, so it's on my list for next summer. And my list is long, expensive, and subject to weather and winds, so we will just have to see how it goes. I still have way too much unpublished footage from last year, but in some cases, like now, I like to publish when I have relevant stories to go with. And I have the feeling that more updates will be needed from there, although this might not turn into something major. So as a conclusion this time, it's best to do as a glacier, keep our cool. And with that, I'm sending you best regards from the volcano island, Iceland.